Awesome, thank you. So as Trevor mentioned, my name is Trav Kane. I also go by another name, and that's T-Rex. So those who have known me for a long time, I go by T-Rex, so yeah, I've carried that moniker for a while. So today we're going to talk about Splunk ML AI, what's now and what's next. Now, for anyone who's worked with Splunk for a long time, you would have seen this slide. Effectively, it's a forward-looking statement slide, especially if I talk about things that are coming in the future. As much as I'd love you to go out and sign a purchase order based on my presentation today, got to keep in mind, I guess, some of the things I may be talking about may change in the future. So please keep that in mind. AI. I'm pretty sure every single talk here today and tomorrow, I almost guarantee you will mention something about AI. But there's many different forms of AI. There's machine learning, and I'll probably a fair bit of that today in my presentation. There's deep learning, probably less commonly used, I think, when we talk about the artificial intelligent kind of different derivatives. And of course, the new kid on the block, generative AI. But the thing is, I think we tend to use them as all the same thing under the one AI banner, but they're not. They're actually completely different for a lot of different ways, and I'll cover off a little bit today. So we're really sitting there in this kind of world of understanding what this AI can do for us. Now, most of you in the room, we're all technology people, pretty switched on. But AI really hasn't been as part of our bread and butter as tech individuals for all that long as far as having to really come up to speed with it. I don't know about you, but when I go to a family barbecue now, I have my family members come up to me and say, hey Travis, while you're fixing my printer, because we all have that kind of problem, right? Tell me about this AI thing. Am I going to be attacked by Terminators? And so I think when you think about it, it's actually gone down into this world now. And it's because of this. Not this particular slide, not because of Gartner, but actually what I would say the common public is now asking us around AI. It's progressed outside of the technology field. And this is why it's coming around everywhere at the moment. But even though we're not fully experts yet, I would say, I do honestly believe one thing. And that is the next 10 years will be defined about what we do with AI today and going forward. And I'm not the only one. So McKinsey, they've done some research and they've said generative AI alone represents, let's just split the difference, $3 trillion opportunity for businesses today. That's pretty big money. And then you look at what businesses are doing because of that. We're seeing a growth in the amount of money that's being changed in businesses from different projects to now focus on AI-driven projects. So this year alone, or last year, 2023, IDC said that they're focusing on $154 billion is being spent on AI initiatives inside of businesses. And that's going to only grow to $300 billion by 2026. So you can already see companies now starting to shift and change their mindset and how we're going to kick off these AI initiatives to capture some of that $3 trillion opportunity. But it doesn't come without risks. Gartner's done some research and said, well, over 50% of organizations are actually really concerned about what happens when we flick that switch to Gen AI. So why are we in this position? All of a sudden, you've got half the companies worried about using it, but we're spending so much money trying to tap into it. And that's because I think deep down we know that positive use of AI outcomes gets some really good stuff going. If you think about a business from 10, 15 years ago, if you were top of your game, all you had to do to remain top was just do a good job, don't stuff up, and make sure you have good customer support. If you think of today, that is no longer the case. If you are not innovating, if you're not developing, you're not changing the game, you're not out there on the bleeding edge, you will fall behind everyone else. And I think that's why we're seeing the adoption of AI at such large scale right now, because people are willing to take that slight risk about what's going to happen next. So as exciting as AI-powered yoga pants and AI-powered hairdryers are, and they actually exist, you can Google them. And I thought the other day if I tried to use an AI-powered hairdryer, it would probably automatically turn off and tell me to get a less stressful job. But there's a lot of companies really looking at AI and how it can increase their efficiencies and provide greater resilience for their business. But so are threat actors. If you look at threat actors today, they're also looking at generative AI. We all know that threat actor companies out there, it's big business. And so they're looking at ways to tap in, and I'm not sure if you've heard about things like Poison GPT and Worm GPT. If you look at the Poison generative AI software, is that they're taking language learning models that we all use to train our AI on, and they're injecting either misinformation or bad code inside that language learning models. And so when you start training your AI on them, you could be potentially training on the wrong thing and getting the wrong information. Now we all know also when using generative AI, there's a lot of safeguards built into that generative AI. So if I asked it to actually create me some bad code so I can attack someone, it should come up and say, no, you're not allowed to do that. Now Worm generative AI is apparently some things on the dark web that have the capability to just take all those safeguards off. So that's some of the attacks we're getting today. And I think we've all seen in the news about misinformation as well as being a very powerful use of generative AI from a threat actor perspective. And I have my personal pet hate, fake movie trailers. I'm not sure if you've seen on your news threads, I did a search for John Wick 5, and you see this weathered, Keanu Reeves, he looks like he's 60 years old with grey hair, saying official movie trailer. And it's clearly fake. And the funny thing behind that is that I actually used that image in my slide here, and marketing wasn't sure if I was allowed to use it, if I was breaching some sort of intellectual copyright. So we're in this weird state right now where we don't even know what's real, what's not, what can I use, what can I not use when using generative AI to do that. Enough on the bad stuff. So AI provides some excellent opportunities for us going forward. As I mentioned earlier, companies are struggling with manual tasks and even just keeping up, especially now we're all working from anywhere. I mean, how do I know that one of my colleagues is logged in from a cafe, or is that someone actually hacking into our system? We need to understand this. And with all those data points, it's really hard to understand. And that's a really perfect use case for AI, to be able to sift through all those data points for us and map it out and pick out what's anomalous behavior. I don't know about you, I spend a lot of my time reverse engineering, as we call it. Every time I look for something, a bit of code, a bit of software, I have to go out there and search for it, find a Reddit article or something like that that tells me how to do it. I have to look at it, try and work out how it works, and eventually I'll get to the end. A tool like generative AI is perfect for that kind of scenario, and we're seeing some of the benefits of that coming out as well. One of our colleagues famously said inside of Splunk the other day, we need to get away from having a single glass of pain to something that's actually actionable. But as I mentioned, generative AI alone is not the only tool you should look at when looking at a data strategy. It's really important that we think about all of those other areas, as I mentioned earlier, deep learning, machine learning, generative AI. Which one of those tools is best suited for the right purpose in your data strategy going forward? At Splunk, we've been using AI as part of our core fundamentals for almost 10 years. Now, not sure if you saw, last year was our 20th anniversary at Splunk. Happy birthday to us. And so basically, we've been using some form of AI in the business for over 10 years. And I'll probably argue back then, 10 years ago, we probably didn't really understand the benefits at such vast scale as we do today because of the pressures we have on the amount of data we have. Now, I do feel like this slide's missing something. I'm not sure. Perhaps it's this. For those who weren't aware, recently we've been acquired by Cisco. Pretty cool announcement. I'm excited about that. So as I mentioned, 2015 at Conf, we did a presentation around machine learning toolkit. This was one of the first ones we announced in market, which gives our customers the ability to basically predict, forecast, and identify patterns within their data. And that toolkit's still you'll be using today, and I've got an example of that a bit later on. But our AI philosophy inside of Splunk is threefold. The first, we want to be domain specific around how we use AI today. So Splunk's not going to come out and make a magical AI toaster with a clock in it. No, we want to stick to our core roots of security and observability. We want to make sure that the human is in the loop at all times. We're not going to turn our AI on and automatically go off and do all this stuff in your environment without you being the person who initiates that. So we think as AI has an ability to assist you in making more accurate and better decisions. And lastly, we want to make sure it's open and extensible for everyone to use. So, let's have a look at some of the capabilities we have today in the kit bag when it comes to Splunk, ML, and AI. So I mentioned earlier, security and observability. For those who have been working with Splunk for a while, we pretty much sort of draw a line down the middle, and we have those two core competencies inside of Splunk. The good news is all of those products up there, just to start with, have ML and AI, some form of AI baked into the products and using it today. And down the bottom, we have what we call our free, kind of more assistive, customizable tools. And a perfect example of that is the machine learning toolkit I mentioned earlier. And I'll touch on the other one, the AI assistant, as well. And these are the things you can add on to your platform for free to really get some good insights to your platform. So if I look at our security suite, for those who aren't aware, enterprise security is our premium Gartner leading Magic Quadrant product. We call it ES as well. Now, ES really helps businesses analyze the data and draw insights and basically ultimately detect those investigations and threats faster. But a key part of the ES and the way that it works is our content updates. And we basically have a threat research team of the people who go out and they develop those content updates. So Splunk, in the last 12 months alone, has developed over 6 machine learning driven content updates as part of our enterprise security product to help you. And we're seeing that a lot more from the threat research team around that. But it generally takes the form of 3 kind of categories inside of machine learning AI. We have anomaly detection, predictive analytics, and clustering, AI and ML. And I thought I'd quickly give you a brief overview of each of those 3 as they're developing. So anomaly detection. This is where you can basically take all your data points and you start to look, it's a very popular use case, where we look at significant deviations from the past behavior over time. So this is really powerful to understand if something's happened that you weren't aware of. Again, all the interconnected devices, all the different ways you connect today and all the data points, it's very hard to pick out that random anomalous behavior. This is really good way to do that. So if you have a sudden spike, a sudden drop, a sudden increase in usage, is it an attack? This is a really good way to pick it out early. That same data, you can now apply another machine learning algorithm to it, predictive analysis. Because you have the data over time, you can start predicting trends in your data. Now, it doesn't have to be a CPU trend, or it could be just sales. You could be tracking your sales trends over time, or predicting future things. So you can apply it to any use case or any lens. And again, that's a really good way to be able to look for potential issues coming up before your customers see it, which is the most important part. And the last one, which is, I think, the coolest, is clustering. For clustering, basically you have the ability to take those same data points and now group them into similar looking data points. This gives you the ability to see things that are outside of normal behavior. And the cool thing is that what forms up our key product, user behavioral analytics. It uses that clustering analytics capability to be able to look at what's not normal behavior inside of Splunk. And so over time, as it would do, it uses unsupervised machine learning to look at all the data points and basically create a baseline of what normal looks like. And then it can basically filter all that data out down to millions of data points, down to over 150 anomalous activities. And that's all well and good. So you've gone down from millions down to 150, but that's still a lot of things your security analysts have to look at. So we run it through a second set of unsupervised machine learning to now look at the things that from a security threat perspective. So we look for those unusual patterns. So what kind of anomalous behaviors A, B, C can be joined together? And that's what we call high fidelity threats. And that is really important for your SOC analysts to avoid burnout and to give them the focus of what they need on the right outcomes. So that's on security. Similar things can be talked about with our IT observability platform. We have a product called IT Service Intelligence, or ITSI, and that takes a very similar approach around machine learning around your data. But the cool thing about ITSI It's effectively like a no-code machine learning capability. It takes a lot of the hard work around having to have data scientists understand your data, understand what's seasonal data, and help our customers really get the good capability around machine learning. And we're focusing a lot on this. Last year we announced what's called outlier adaptive thresholds. So that means that if you've had a sudden spike for whatever reason, it could be a once in a 100-year flood, or it could be a big sale, or someone's tweeted your product and it's blown out your metrics, that can also throw out all of your machine learning because it's now factoring that in. So with the new feature, you can actually say, no, I want to exclude that data point. And that will really help you with the thresholding. And that's one of the biggest challenges you see today with machine learning, is how do I know what's real and what is green and what is red on my little chart? And that's what that can help you do. On our observability cloud, the full cloud native traces metrics capability, our APM product also has machine learning built in to performance baselines. So again, you need to know what was the normal behavior over time with my application. That's really important in a cloud native world where everyone's using different traffic, interconnected devices. I've got payment gateways, I've got different connected, I've got Kubernetes clusters. What does normal look like? And I'll argue you can probably only really do that effectively with machine learning. And that's what APM does out of the box for Splunk Observability. And the cool thing about it is, all you have to do is subscribe to it, and you can start tracking it. And then you can alert different people just on a subscription. As I mentioned earlier, we have the capability to add on some apps and add-ons as part of the market, Splunk base. And we have one called Splunk App for Anomaly Detection. And the best thing about that is it takes, again, the hard work out of having data analysts and things look at your data and understand what's seasonal and what's not. So in just a few simple basic clicks, you can load your time series data into the Splunk App for Anomaly Detection, and you can choose which fields you care about, and then you click Detect Anomalies. And the cool thing is, two things happen right then. It does a health check, and it says, hey, is this data even worth looking at from an anomaly perspective? And the second thing it does, it goes through and over time it goes, actually, I think this is seasonal data. Because by the way, okay, everyone goes home on the weekend, and so what I'm tracking here, my performance goes down, so you just don't have a flat line of kind of an average amount. It actually takes that seasonal trends into the actual application. And again, you don't have to do that. You don't have to have a data analyst understand that for you. You just click on and it detects it for you. Now, who in this room is an SPL guru? One person. I'm not going to put my hand up. One of the biggest love and hates with our product when we talk to our customers is that SPL is so powerful, but then getting to be an expert in it is quite an uplift in skill. And so if you lose someone in your organization who has that skill, it's quite a bit of an uplift to train them. So last year, we announced the Splunk Assist, AI Assist for SPL. It's our generative AI capability. So you can do two things. If someone sends you a giant chunk of SPL and you go, what on earth does that do? You can put it into the assistant and it'll spit out in plain English, so you can sound cool in front of your friends and go, I know what this does, and tells you how to do it. And the reverse of that, I want to know how to do something. So again, I would like to do this in SPL, and it will spit out the SPL command for you, and you can put it into the search tool. And you can also append to it as well. So it's an iterative approach. I would also like to add this to it, and it will spit that out as well. So it's definitely worth playing with. It's in preview at the moment. It was one of our first generative AI capabilities going forward. Now, before I move on to what's next, I want to take a little sidestep and talk about one of our customers, Acilia. They're a tech non-for-profit organization focused on creating equity in healthcare by making data science tools open to everyone. This allows the teams to track infectious diseases, speed up experiments, which leads to reduction in drug development time. Now, if you're like me, you're probably a bit skeptical of going, well, wait a minute, the drug companies are making a lot of money. Why is there a tech non-for-profit helping them out? And some scary facts out there. According to the World Health Organizations, 6 out of every 10 causes of death in low-income areas is due to infections. Now, only 15% of all drugs being developed today target infections. I'll let you do the math as maybe why that might be. But this is where Acilia's work is looking to really focus on to help those global health organizations tackle that exact problem. So as you can imagine, non-profit company, very time constraint, very resource constraint, very money constraint. So they're having to do a lot of things manually, lacking of good technical skills. So as part of our global impact program, we helped set them up with Splunk. We gave them training, we gave them insights in the platform and support. So before Splunk, they were doing all this manually, but in the first year of using our product, within 6 months, they scaled out to over 100 data models to help speed up that drug analysis. And after the first 6 months, they're predicting in the next 6 months over 500 data models in the platform. So I think that's a pretty good use case of how you can use something like Splunk with your data to get some fast outcomes without having necessarily the people to drive it. So think about what's next. So we have a philosophy in Splunk. We see AI as a digital resilience accelerator. And it tends to come down to two kind of categories. We have the foundational AI, which I talked about with machine learning. We want to make sure that's stable across the entire platform and scale. And then we want to use a lot more generative AI to help with those user kind of more explanatory kind of circumstances. So where are we going? So when we look at Splunk, we want to get a lot more specific around our generative AI capabilities. So you'll see a lot more of those kind of assistants. And for those unaware, we have our .conf coming up, Conf 24 in Vegas. Don't worry, it's all recorded and live streamed for us Aussies. But I'm sure you'll see a lot of announcements around this kind of space. We also want to take that ML capability and not just have them as point solutions. We want to make it scalable and rather than point solutions right across the entire platform in one consistent, easy mode. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure it's extensible. We want to make sure your developers can add, tweak, and use it as they need to for your use cases going forward. Now, I've done a bit of pre-reading for you, and I've got a whole bunch of different guides. Now, unfortunately, I haven't got the QR codes here, but at the booth, I do have them. And so please come and have a look at them. It's actually really good, cool readings. We call them the Splunk AI Perspectives, and it's really worth having a look at. But I also wanted to plug an upcoming conf session, as I mentioned, around AI ML. And not because it's just an AI ML, there's going to be lots of AI ML ones, but the Aussies in Australia here are helping develop this content and are going to be delivering it. So if you want to get behind your Aussies, please give a shout out to these guys if you are going to conf. It should be a great session. So before I wrap up, I wanted to give you a little of recent experience I had with AI. So I was doing this talk and I was putting it all together, almost finished. I had a mate of mine reach out and said, "Oh, I heard you're doing a presentation at AWS Summit." I go, "What's it on?" I said, "AI." "Oh, do you want a hand?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've already finished, but hey, you can give me a hand if you like." And he said, "Oh, send me some details of what it's about." So I sent him the synopsis. And of course, he came back with that. Now you can probably imagine what he did. He took my synopsis, put it inside of generative AI tool, and sent it back to me, here's your help. And first of all, I'm like, "Oh, thanks for nothing." But I read through it, and I read all that, and I kind of went, you know what? Actually, my presentation ticks a lot of those boxes. So I was feeling pretty good about myself. So if you're going to take anything out of today, is that right now, I'm as smart as a $100 billion PC. Thanks for your time. Please come and see us at the booth. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks.
Thanks very much, T.